There's a lot of people we try to tell the story of here at WallBuilders. One of the individuals that we're going to highlight for you is someone who we celebrate as an American, but he didn't start off as an American, but he did become famous enough they made a movie about him. His name is Wernher von Braun.
Can you believe it? Can you realize that you and I, that all of us, have actually begun the exploration of another world? We have taken the first historic step into our solar system.
Wernher von Braun was born in Germany in 1912. He grew up in Germany. He had, because of his family, his mother was really interested in science and astronomy. He grew up with a love for space and love for stars and a love for science. And so when he went to college, he was a major in physics and really focused on that.
Got a PhD in physics.
Got a PhD in
which
physics.
I feel like is not an easy thing to do, so probably you're really good at math. And because he's good at math, as he's growing up, when he's in his 20s, he joins and he becomes part of the Nazi campaign.
As Hitler comes to power and he starts seeing what's happening with Hitler, and by the way, because of his physics, they put him in charge of the V-2 rocket program. Now, this is the first in the world. We're now talking rockets, at a time you never had it. I mean, we're hardly having cars at the time he's born, and now here he is in charge of a rocket program, so a lot of growth of science, and so he's in charge of it. Well, Hitler starts taking and using that rocket to kill people. He hits London with it, and what he's doing with the Holocaust, and this is not good. And so Wernher von Braun, even though he's a Nazi, he starts criticizing Hitler, criticizing what's happening. Well, the Germans come and arrest him and they throw him in prison, but oh my gosh, they can't leave him there because he's in charge of the rocketry program. So they get him out of prison, he's back with it, but he has this moral dilemma. This is a lot of power. I mean, I created rockets, but it was not for killing people. And so now we have this power in our hands. This is not right, and the Germans aren't the people to have this.
Right.
So he says this needs to go to a nation that is guided by the Bible. That was America. So he defected to America. Now, when he defected to America, the U.S. Army immediately put him in charge of the American rocketry program because we were so far behind.
Yeah, the rockets, what was happening in Germany was advanced beyond anything any other nation had. And so when he got to America, this was a game changer for us. Now, largely the war was already coming to an end, and so it really, you didn't see it manifested the same way throughout World War II. Nonetheless, his technology elevated America so quickly beyond where we were.
And in 1960, what he's going to become famous for hadn't even happened yet. He's the guy who helped put a man on the moon, but in 1960, nobody had been into space yet. But what he had done, even with, this is the U.S. rocketry program, what he had done there was so amazing that they made this movie about Wernher von Braun.
The way I tell it to you, that's different.
Oh, go on.
Well, I believe that a big part of the future of mankind will take place in what we now call space. Lord knows I'm a practical scientist, not a poet. But I just can't see space as a vast, inhospitable waste.
Now, he was a strong Christian guy. When he got to the United States, they put him out in western Texas, El Paso, that's where the rocketry program was, and he attended a church out there and he gave his life to the Lord. So here's a guy who literally already recognized this needs to go to a Bible country, that's America, but he's not a Christian yet, but he becomes a Christian in El Paso.
Yeah, there's a little pamphlet that actually talks about his faith that we have, and in this, one of the quotes he has is really interesting related to science. He said, "God has built man with curiosity. God expects man to use this gift. I do not think the process should ever stop. Now we have the tools available to explore space. I believe this. If it were not the Creator's intent for us to explore celestial bodies, He would not have permitted us to have acquired the tools. Something else is apparent. God has not placed any visible obstacles in our way. I believe we have His permission and His blessing." What's awesome about this, the guy who's leading the space program in America defects from Germany, looking for a nation influenced and guided by the Bible. He himself is guided by the Bible in his life and what he does. That we know in the race for space, in 61, when the Soviets get a man in space and the Americans get a man in space, but America gets to the moon first. All of this happens largely because of von Braun and his involvement. Actually, one of the other things we have is a record. And records, I mean, there were kind of records around when I grew up. It's a little before my time. I'm pretty sure I know how it still works.
So this audio record is what happened around the landing of Apollo 11 when man first went to the moon with Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin and others. And so what happens is throughout that entire process of the several days of going to the moon, he's talking with a national correspondent, Chet Huntley. And they have their conversations. He says, here's what's about to happen, here's what just happened, here's what Neil just did. And he goes through
So the guy in charge of the program is walking you through the process. And so ultimately leading up to this is one small step for a man, right? The famous words we kind of know, but this is an audio recording, so we have an original record, which is super fun, actually still sealed up. I think you can find this audio on the internet. You can go and listen to it. The point is, von Braun is a famous name in American history, but the story of him getting here is a very unique story. And even when he gets here, how God gets a hold of his life, and then the entire space program, his entire life is shaped by faith. One of the things that today we seldom recognize how much faith played a part in so many of the heroes of our nation.